Let's get this sports podcast party started, all right?
The JAYREELZ podcast.
Why don't you wait until July 1st to make an announcement? What a disgrace. He can rack up all these numbers in October, November, and December, but what really counts is let me see this in January.
The sports rebel without a pause, delivering fast-paced, jam-packed sports talk like no other.
Listen, I gotta call it as I see it. He is not a good player. I'm sick and tired of having to deal with the disappointment of this franchise. When does it stop? And yes, another winter that I can sleep in peace. Coming correct, direct, and in full effect. Let's get it.
This is the JAYREELZ podcast. Welcome aboard.
What is happening, my good people? Greetings. How are you? How's it going? How's everybody doing out there? What is the latest and greatest? Hope everybody's doing well, feeling fantastic, in excellent spirits. Here as we approach the end of another month. We still got about 8 or 9 days to go. But even still, with all the madness that have taken place, a lot of madness is going to be forthcoming here on this podcast. So you definitely do not want to miss what I have to say here over the next hour plus, as this is the JAYREELZ podcast with your host, JAYREELZ. For my first timers, welcome aboard. And for those who've been banging with me going back to the very beginning, somewhere in the middle, or even as early as this past, maybe Thursday, I welcome you guys and gals back because Thursday was a little bit of a mishmash when it comes to the podcast. I just had a couple of the big topics that I wanted to unpack. The WBC with Venezuela winning over the U.S., as well as the tournament, giving you my predictions, which I talked about on last Wednesday's live stream, which I have here on the channel on YouTube every Wednesday at high noon Eastern time. So now that we're back at it, and let's face it, the story of the weekend was the tournament, and that's where I'm going to begin. There's a lot of other things to get to, which I'll talk about afterwards, but I'd be remiss if I did not start here. And let's face it, the big picture, I'll start there as far as the weekend, and then I'll take a look at the crystal ball moving forward. And then obviously I'll get into the games, I'll get into the brackets, etc. But the theme overall, it was going to be, I thought maybe at best, these past 4 days was going to be a C. Yesterday saved it and moved it to at least a B minus, maybe a B if I'm generous. But when we look at what had taken place between Thursday, which was excellent, when you had the upsets galore, then on Friday, not so much. Friday was actually very quiet, didn't really have a lot going on. And again, I'll break it all down. Saturday got a little bit better. And then yesterday, you got what you were hoping for, looking for. You have a 1 seed that's out in Florida, which again we'll unpack. So to me, what was salvaged over the course of the first 3 days yesterday really did the NCAA proud because it looked like it was headed for, I won't say an abysmal weekend, but a very underwhelming weekend when we look at it. Now, I'll get to the big picture later on. Of course, let me chronicle what had taken place over the course of the weekend. And we'll start off with Thursday. And, of course, I'm not going to break down every single game because you know there were a ton of blowouts. The 1 seeds did fine up until Florida. And even the other 1 seed with Duke. Duke did not have or really stick out the way we thought they would. And that's where I'll begin because they started off pretty much the tournament, when you think about it, there on Thursday, to where Siena gave them a fight. Siena had a double-digit lead there in the second half. Although I didn't really worry about Duke, I had a feeling that they were going to get their bearings and they were going to get themselves on track. And yet they did have a sweat out a game there at the end to where it was much more tooth and nail than they could possibly even imagine. And then even by them winning on Saturday, and Duke, where they were the number 1 seed in the entire tournament. And when we looked at how they were going to be a team considering in the East, playing in Greensville, which they could walk to from their campus, and knowing that they were pretty much not necessarily a cakewalk, because now as we get into the deeper part of the tournament, which again I'll unpack a little bit later on, but knowing that they had a tough go at it with Siena, and then they had to play TCU, which TCU for a half, they were pretty good. And in fact, I think it was 44 up with about 14 minutes to go in the second half. So you're thinking, wait a minute, is this going to be another push, pull, back and forth down to the final? Maybe not 2 minutes, or maybe the final 5-6 minutes to where they're in a rock fight. But no, they were able to prevail. They went on a 10-0 lead, and then they pretty much took off, and they won by, I think it was 23 when it was all said and done. So Duke, although Sweet 16, no shock, but certainly not really overly impressive throughout the process. Whereas Michigan, when they started on Thursday, they looked like the team to beat. Michigan looks like the team that we thought they'd been all year long with the 3 losses, and all they did was just beat the brakes off their opponents. And Michigan, who I picked to get to a Final Four, and in fact, my Final Four is still intact. One more time, we'll talk about that later on. But Michigan, you knew they were going to dispose of Howard in the fashion that they did. And Howard, of course, was one of the first 4 teams to make it into the tournament. And then Michigan handled business against St. Louis, who St. Louis was a team that could have been maybe not a sleeper, maybe a sleeper, you could say, although they were on a lot of people's radar coming into this tournament. But Michigan certainly had their way with them. And now look ahead to the Sweet 16 to see what they can do to get to a Final Four in Indianapolis. H2O here, people. And also, I want to throw this in. I'm running on fumes. I'm bringing the energy. Do what I can to make sure that I provide not only a very entertaining but informative podcast, but you may not see it on the outside for those who are watching live on YouTube or are going to watch the recording on Spotify. But let me tell you, your boy's hurting. But no excuses. Got to plow ahead. Got to put on the uniform and continue to march on. Quite ironically, during March Madness. And then you have Arizona, and I'm going to start with the 1 seeds first before I get to these games. Arizona looks like the team that a lot of people thought that they could be a threat to get to a Final Four and beyond. And by beating LIU, Rod Strickland's team, the Sharks there that play on the other side of the bridge there in Brooklyn, no contest there. But with Utah State, who beat Villanova, and Utah State certainly, I'm not going to say had their way, but certainly hung in there as much as they can. But Arizona was able to prevail there, and they advanced. But what's going to be interesting is the matchup there that we're going to see in the regional semifinal, because Arkansas, they look like they could be a team that could get to a Final Four. Now, obviously, they have a big mountain to climb, there being the Wildcats when they meet up there this forthcoming weekend. And I'll break down the opening 2 days. Obviously, we're not going to know about once we get to an Elite Eight, Saturday, Sunday, where the schedule and the times of that nature. But we'll talk about that, and I'll preview the games on Thursday's podcast, so no need to have a early breakdown. But what I will do is look into the crystal ball just to give you an idea as we head into Thursday where the tournament will pick up as to what we have as far as storylines go. Not necessarily the matchups and the games. That I'll save for Thursday's podcast. But then Arkansas, who beat Wisconsin in High Point. A lot of people thought High Point could be kind of like St. Louis, a team that could somehow, some way make their way into a Sweet 16. Not the case. And in fact, you got to give it up to High Point because the game was tied at 83 there late until Darius Acuff all of a sudden turned it on. Made 2 big baskets and then a 3 on top of that to have a 7-0 lead. And then they went ahead and won by 6 when it was all said and done. But give it up. High Point was game. They played very well in winning their first game against Wisconsin and certainly did all they could to have Arkansas and John Calipari sweat there. But Acuff, who's a guy that is going to be a big-time player. There's a lot of comparisons depending on who you speak to, whether it's Allen Iverson, whether it's Kyrie Irving with his ball handling and the crossover, his explosiveness. That's a guy that we talked about even last Thursday, a guy to watch out for here in this tournament. And right now, he just showed that to you against High Point. Now, of course, with the stakes and the competition being that much more higher, we're going to wait to see what he's going to do against Arizona to see if they advance to the regional final. But the big surprise here, and especially I'll stick with this bracket, that being the West, is the only double-digit seed that remains. And that is the Texas Longhorns. And who would have thought? This was a team that I thought didn't even belong in the tournament. Didn't even belong in the first 4. Let's face it. This was a team that was unable to win a conference game there in the SEC And they were already on the bubble to begin with at 18-13. So they lose that game. They're 18-14. You think to yourself, oh, no, there's no way. And here they were, a team that made it into the first four. And all right, they were able to advance. They were able to win their game and have to play there on Thursday where they beat, I was going to say SMU. No, that was Miami of Ohio, which I'll get to later on. That was NC State. So for Texas to then advance, all right, again in the tournament, they're an 11 seed. All right, let's see what they're going to do, how it's going to shake down. And I thought they weren't going to advance. I thought they were going to lose this first game. I didn't think that they were going to have any shot to get to the second round. And all they did was beat AJ DeBanza and BYU. And DeBanza, although he scored 35 points, but very disappointing for BYU to not be able to advance. I looked at them as being a sleeper team based on him. And we think he's going to be a top 3 pick in the draft this forthcoming NBA draft in June. But that was a very disappointing effort. But then now Texas went on to play Gonzaga. And, I mean, what could you say? Gonzaga had a big year. I understand, kind of under the radar, not the Gonzaga teams that we've seen of years past. But considering that they were amongst the top-ranked teams in the nation early on, and then they slipped down to the pack to where they were a 3 seed. And lo and behold, they're out, and Texas advances, gets themselves to a Sweet 16, and you're looking around to think that, wait a minute, could Texas really be that Cinderella moving forward here in the tournament? We'll talk about that in a little bit, but they have been by far the biggest shock. The second biggest shock, and I'm going to get to that bracket in a minute, because Purdue ends up winning their game, or games, I should say, to no surprise. They end up beating Miami there yesterday after beating Queens College there on Friday. So no harm, no foul. When you look at that bracket, you have Arizona, Arkansas, followed by Texas, Purdue. And again, when I take a look as far as Thursday and Friday, it's going to be interesting to hear my take on that. So you definitely want to stay tuned, because just like I said on Thursday, it's pretty much going to ring true here when we get to a Sweet 16. And then in the Midwest, as we talked about Michigan, they're going to play Alabama. And Alabama, even with everything that was hanging over their heads with their second leading scorer in Aiden Holloway, him being removed from campus after having an arrest there for drug possession. In this particular case, I believe it was marijuana, where he had a couple of pounds. Who knows why he was doing that? I'm sure he was getting some NIL money, but maybe he thought side hustle. I don't know. That's alleged. But for Alabama, they did not use that as a distraction. They've actually played very well, advancing there. They will play Michigan in the opening round there, the Sweet 16 and the regional semi. They're in the Midwest. And then Tennessee with a big-time performance beating Virginia. That was another big story there yesterday. Virginia, who wasn't really in love with. And Tennessee, you love their backcourt. That's led by Jacoby Gillespie and the other kid who I know I can't pronounce his name. But Tennessee with their backcourt and being able to score, and that's what they did there against Virginia, and they pretty much handled them. Wasn't a close game. I understand they had their moments where Virginia, I believe they cut it to, at one point, I want to say they cut it to 3. How much time left? They'll lose me right at this very moment, but I thought Tennessee had pretty much the game in hand. I didn't think that Virginia was that much of a threat for them to bypass the Volunteers, and they were able to advance. And Iowa State, to no surprise, now Kentucky, they got slaughtered here. The biggest loss that they've had in their school's history, dating back now, well over 50 years, I believe since 72. And Iowa State, the Cyclones continue to perform well, as we've seen them do throughout the course of the year. They actually could have been a 1 seed, but their play slipped there at the end of the regular season into the conference tournaments. But for them, they're going to face Tennessee, which is going to be very fascinating, I think, and a very sneaky good game, because although you have a lot of great games that we'll discuss, but that one I think is going to be a very high-scoring, just shootout, and who knows, whoever's going to get the ball last, if the score is close, that could be your game winner. And then in the South, now, for Florida to lose that game yesterday, and let's unpack that. Now, Iowa, that's another borderline team that could have gotten to the tournament, or should have gotten into the tournament, I should say. Iowa, who did beat Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament, but then got bounced in the next round. And although they did beat Nebraska earlier this year, they actually split with them and they beat them at home. But they came into this tournament at 21-11. And all right, we've seen teams come in with records like that. I mean, look, Texas, 18-14. But I thought that they were a team that, I can't see them going deep. All right, maybe they could win a first-round matchup considering that they were the 9 team in the 8-9 matchup. And they beat Clemson. All right, no big whoop there. But for them to not only hang with Florida, but then to draw a great play from the inbounds where they had that one trailer on the wing go off into the corner where I don't know what Florida was thinking. The one guy went to the dribbler, which I got to understand. The game is a 2-point game if he gets to the basket and a foul. But the trailer who got to the corner, nobody picked him up. So he had a wide open look, drains the three at 72-70 to make it 73-72. Now 3/4 or 3.4 seconds left on the clock. Florida draws their play. Todd Golden, you figure, is going to have something creative. Inbounds, guard trying to penetrate, trying to see if he can get to the rim. He's defended well. Can't kick it out. Can't do anything. Time expires. Didn't even get a shot off. So kudos to Iowa and their defense to throttle any opportunity for Florida to get a shot off. And it makes you think, I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe they didn't have of course, they had a play designed, but certainly not designed in order for them to try to get a wide open look. And even if they got a wide open look from 3, I get it. They just needed 2. If I was the guard there from Florida, I would have tried just to get to the basket, even if you get fouled, if it gets blocked, something. You got to put up some type of shot. Even if you heave it over your shoulder, whatever it may be, I get it. You got to give Iowa and the Hawkeyes their credit for defending that play. But that's how the defending champs in their season ends. And that's just bad. And I get it. One season get picked off here before you get to a Sweet 16. And now that sets up well for Houston. Because Houston, who did well here, and rightfully so as we expect, not only beating Idaho, but also Texas A&M along the way. And then now with the other bracket and the other major disappointment here the weekend was North Carolina. And who knows with Hubert Davis, the status of him and how that's going to unfold as far as him coming back as coach. I can't recall Carolina having just a putrid effort. This team was up 19 points with less than 15 minutes to go in the game against Virginia Commonwealth. And I understand they got a bit of a pedigree dating back a dozen years or so. But for them to let them come back in the game, tie it, and then lose in overtime, I mean, that is just, I'm sure Roy Williams, George Karl, Michael Jordan, Kenny Smith, who could be the next coach, by the way. You haven't seen him in the studios there when it comes to the pre- and post-game for the tournament. I mean, this was one that I'm sure they spit out their Miller Lite or their kale salads, whatever it may be, when they saw the end result of this game. I mean, what could you say? Hubert Davis, that's a game you got to win. I understand that VCU is going to make a run or two. All right, maybe they'll cut the deficit to within 5, maybe a basket, and even that is stretching it. But Carolina, that was just an implosion for them. And who knows if Hubert Davis survives this. Based on some of the rumors, maybe he doesn't. I mean, is Kenny Smith going to be the guy that's going to take over? Now, we understand Hubert Davis is a former player. Kenny Smith goes way back, as you know, to the 80s. Queens product here, locally in New York City. But that was just probably, when you think about the weekend overall, that was probably the worst loss of any team. Based on the lead, them blowing it, and then losing it in overtime. And yeah, I understand there are other teams that blew games, and I understand that there were some tough losses, whatever, but to me, that was the worst one. And sticking into that region, I think the most heartbreaking one, when you look at it, not the worst, but the most heartbreaking, is what you saw there between Vanderbilt and Nebraska there on Saturday. And that was and give it up to Nebraska. They won their first tournament game there against let me see, look at my bracket here. Yes, against Troy. And for Vandy to beat McNeese State. And then it had a situation where it came down to the final play. Well, you had the 3 there for Nebraska that set it up for where Vandy, as their getting the ball up court. As a matter of fact, that was a layup, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think that was a three. My bad there. But then you had Vanderbilt heave a half-court shot, which was halfway down and rimmed right out. Oh, my goodness. I know they are still thinking about that shot and probably still haven't slept, knowing that they were this close to advancing, and that would have been just a dagger for Nebraska. But they lived to see another day. Kudos to them. Tremendous for Nebraska here to not only get that win, but to make it to a Sweet 16, and they advanced. And the South region, which, of course, I'll break it down, and I will get to shortly. I know it's one other thing that I missed here because they were in a different – I think they were in the Midwest. Yeah, I know. I didn't talk about that Kentucky Santa Clara game because obviously Kentucky did not advance against Iowa State. That was just a crazy ending, too, the back-to-back threes, and Kentucky making that three from it almost seemed to be half court. Pretty much Spiro Ditas on the call. But Kentucky, as you know by now, based on the recap, them losing to Iowa State, losing by, 29, if I'm not mistaken? No, by 19. And just a blowout loss there for them. But now as we bring it back to the East, we talked about Duke, obviously got the 1 seeds out of the way. But to me, the game of this bracket was what we saw yesterday between St. John's and Kansas. Now, I'm going to say this about Darren Peterson, not to put this all on him. I understand he ended up with 21 points, did not shoot well from the field. But I don't know about Peterson. He's going to be a top 3 draft pick. Who knows what his combine is going to look like. But Peterson, he would scare me a little bit. Peterson is a guy that you got to wonder what's between his ears. I know he has a world of talent. I know that he's capable of putting up monster games. And who knows? Throughout the combine forthcoming, I'm sure his talent is going to be off the page. But again, maybe not so much between the ears, what is in his chest? And that's the one thing that I would have to really question if I'm going to draft this kid in the top 3 in this forthcoming NBA draft. That's not a knock, just an eye test. And we've seen this throughout the course, even the regular season. Him not playing because he's not feeling well or, I'm just not up to playing tonight. Now, those are some of the reports, not in those terms, but him sitting out because he's got an illness. But, I mean, think about it. The game against Arizona, when Arizona went into that building and beat Kansas. You mean to tell me that you're not going to go up against the Wildcats, a team that was ranked, they were ranked 2 and 4 in the nation. That was the same weekend when not North Carolina, when Duke played Michigan. I mean, what are we doing here? I understand. Even, all right, you're under the weather. You could just give us whatever you got. And that made me question Darren Peterson at that point. And again, I'm not putting this game on him. Did not have a good stat line for sure, even though the 21 points may stick out. But he scored 21. But when you shoot 5 for 15, and no, I'm not buying. But St. John's, as resourceful as they are, led by their head coach Rick Pitino and Zubi Ejiofor, who's a tremendous player. And it came down to that final basket where Dylan Darling, who had a terrible performance, made his only basket of the game there on that game-winning layup late to close out. And you saw the reaction by Rick Pitino where he just pretty much had looked down, arms crossed, walking off the court, and that was it. Because Pitino is acting like he's been there before. And he understands that with this team, knowing that Duke is looming, that there's no time to celebrate, that there's no time to rejoice, that there's no time to read the press clippings, which I'm sure the St. John's and their team, they're probably going to bask in the glow of, hey, we made it to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 1999 when they got to Elite Eight, but they lost to, what did they lose to? I think it was Ohio State that year. Yeah, they beat Maryland because they beat Steve Francis, and I think Ohio State is who they lost to in 99. That was Ron Artest, Eric Barkley. It was that team. And for St. John's, a tremendous win. St. John's, a team that obviously in the days of Lou Carnesecca back in the 80s, Chris Mullin, Walter Berry, getting to a Final Four, trying to get back to that heyday of, and think about it, it's been, 41 years since that has happened, and now they have Duke standing in their way in order for them to advance to a regional final. And along the way, you got both Michigan State and UConn, who they've advanced. UConn in a very good game against UCLA, but they were able to pull away late. And Michigan State, pretty much ho-hum. North Dakota State, no problem. Louisville, pretty much the same. And now you have a bracket where, think about it, the East, where the games will be played in D.C., where I'm sure St. John's and their contingent is going to come down, and you know the Blue Devils, they're going to be right there. And the same can be said for the Husky fan. Michigan State, they travel well. You know, Magic Johnson will be there representing, and Steve Smith as well. I'm sure you're going to see Mo Pete, Morris Peterson, Mateen Cleaves. It's going to be a star-studded affair where you have 4 coaches. I mean, think about it. Tom Izzo, Danny Hurley, Rick Pitino, and I get it, John Shire, because of the school that he's the head of, the captain of as far as the basketball team goes. I mean, you can't get a better Final Four in that region. And that's why we talked about last week, even last Monday, how we thought St. John's got screwed because of their bracket and who they had to face, Kansas in the second round, and now they got to face Duke. And then the winner of that, who knows, you may get another St. John's UConn final, which I'd actually like to see. I mean, that'd be interesting. Now, I got Michigan State coming out of this bracket, so I want to see if they could get to a Final Four. But you may have a round 4 between the Johnnies and the Huskies. And when I look at what else had happened over the weekend, I mean, like I said, Thursday, it was just crazy with the BYU losing and the Banta out, Texas winning, as we talked about, UNC. Miami of Ohio, I didn't talk about. Now, listen, we know that this was a team that had played nobody despite them being 31-1 coming into the tournament, starting off 31-0. And all right, they did win their game against SMU to get to the tournament. And, of course, once they got there, they got smacked around. All right, what are you going to do? What are you going to say? You're going to say, oh, my God, you know, that's terrible. They shouldn't belong in the tournament, blah, blah, blah. Oh, no. I'm not going to be that guy that's going to say that, considering what they've done throughout the course of the regular season, despite the fact that they play in a conference that's, let's face it, there's not a lot of top teams that are there. And I'm sure next year, Miami of Ohio, they're probably going to play in some of these invitational tournaments to start off the college basketball season. They may play against maybe not the Dukes of the world or the Kentuckys, but who knows? They could play against the likes of maybe a BYU or maybe a Texas A&M or a team like that. Maybe they play Nebraska. Who knows? But, you know, they were what they were despite their record. So you can't sit here and say, they didn't deserve it. Look at these guys are frauds or whatever. No, I'm not going to say that. If anything, you could maybe look at Gonzaga as frauds, considering that they were a 3 seed. And listen, I get it's one game, anything can happen, but Texas is going to be like Syracuse, if you recall, because they were, I believe, what year was that? Syracuse. Didn't they have that first 4 run dating back, I think it was 2011-ish, 2012, 2013 maybe, or 14, maybe it's 2013, where Syracuse was the first 4 and they got all the way to a regional final? Maybe this is what we're going to see with Texas. And every now and again, you get that one team, and they're a true Cinderella as the only double-digit seed that's remaining here in this tournament. So we'll have to wait and see. And, yeah, other than that, I mean, you really didn't have a lot Friday and Saturday. Yesterday, we already talked about Florida, St. John's. Obviously, Texas taking care of Virginia. So, like I said, yesterday bailed out what could have been a C weekend. Maybe C minus. But you got to, I'll be generous. I'll say you got a B weekend based on what happened yesterday. And as far as the Sweet 16 now, here are your storylines as we head into Thursday. As I said before, I'll talk more about the early matchups. In fact, let me bring up the schedule so I can talk about that afterwards. And I see you got comments there. I'll get you your comments once I get through my whole stream of consciousness with everything that's happening in sports. So, guys, bear with me on that, which will probably be at the top of the next hour. But as we look at the forthcoming schedule, I'll look at that in a minute. I'll save that. I want to get to the storylines. I mean, the top storyline, we could talk Texas. I get it. Them being the last true Cinderella. I know we could throw Iowa in there too as a 9 seed. I totally get that. But to me, the East, I mean, think about that. You have Duke St. John's, Michigan State, UConn. I mean, that is heavyweight central. And I get it. St. John's may not be on everybody's radar, but who's coaching that team? Arguably the best coach remaining left in the sport. And people would say, oh, well, Danny Hurley, come on, he won 2 championships in the last 3 years. Yeah, all right, fine. But Rick Pitino's now taking his 5th team to a Sweet 16. Do you know who those 5 teams are? I'm sure you can think of maybe 3 off the top of your head. We know Providence, 87, Billy Donovan. Obviously, Kentucky, 96. Of course, Louisville, back in 13. You, of course, have this team here with St. John's. And team number 5, Providence, Kentucky, Louisville. Now, Iona, he did not. I'm missing that one team. I know there's 5, JAYREELZ. But 5 teams he has brought here. And that team will come to me. I'm not going to look it up. Not going to do that. It'll come to me. So when you look at the body of work, and I understand what have you done for me lately? So I get it that he hasn't won a title dating back to 2013 when they beat Michigan. But you got to understand, this guy, he is right now the godfather of all coaches, even more than Tom Izzo, because he's won more titles than Izzo. And Izzo has the one title the last time that a Big Ten coach won a national championship. So to me, that is the top storyline. That bracket, those teams, those coaches, easily by far. The second one, I'll combine that with Texas and Iowa because those are the last 2 sleepers. And just like I said on dating back to the regular season, dating back to Thursday's podcast, which is going to be the third storyline, I think you're going to have an intriguing weekend forthcoming. Because now, other than Texas and Iowa, you have pretty much all the dead weight out. And although March Madness, we love the last second buzzer beaters. We love the double-digit seeds advancing. We love to see George Mason. We love to see VCU once upon a time. We love to see Butler. We love to see those teams that have no business. St. Peter's a few years ago make it to a regional final. I get it. We love it. That's why we are attracted to March Madness. But let's face it, when those teams get to the deep end of the pool, generally the glass slipper doesn't break. It shatters. And you're not going to have that this time around. Because as I break down the brackets, now you know about the East, you have a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 5. With, in order, Duke, UConn, Michigan State, St. John's. Obviously, the best you could get is 1, 2, 3, 4. Here, you have 1, 2, 3, 5. In the West, you have a 1, a 2, a 4, and an 11. Obviously, the 3 seed that was ousted was Gonzaga. That's where Texas comes in. But you have Purdue as a 2, Arizona as a 1, Arkansas as a 4. Then in the Midwest, you have a 1, 2, 4, and 6, that being Tennessee. And to me, I understand you want to look at the sleeper as 6 on, but we know Tennessee is very good. So you know what? I'm not going to look at them like Iowa or even Texas for that matter. But you have 1, 2, 4, 6. And then you have the one bracket, the South, that is the, I hate to use this term, but it's the redheaded stepchild. Because what you have there is a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 9. I mean, granted, you don't have a 1 there. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's 2, 3, 4, 9. So that's where it's top heavy, as I mentioned weeks ago and even Thursday talking about the tournament. So despite the one seed in Florida out, but you still have the other 3 1 seeds there. You have a bunch of 2s, you have a bunch of 3s, you have a bunch of 4s. And then you have a 6, a 9, and 11, which is going to make for fascinating games this weekend. I mean, that's all there is to it. So, again, and to me, those are the storylines. I understand you could talk players here that you could look at, whether it is Darius Acuff to see what he's going to do against Arizona or to see how Alabama's going to fare, even against Michigan, considering with a bit of the turmoil that they went through prior to the start of this tournament. Same for Tennessee, another player there with Jacoby Gillespie. Illinois, we know that they can score. Houston, I mean, think about this. You want to talk about storyline. We knew that if Houston was going to face Florida for a regional final, it was going to be a home game. Now, I mean, if they don't come out of this bracket, there's going to be an investigation. No Florida. They're going to wear the home whites throughout, and the game's going to be played literally within a stone's throw from their campus there in Houston at the Toyota Center. So they're going to have home cooking there in that South region. And that's what you have there with the storylines. I mean, other than that, it's juicy. I don't even know what else to say. I mean, I'm like over the moon just thinking about how this is all going to play out here when we get to Thursday and Friday. And with that being said, as we look at the schedule here, so, and in order, CBS, Texas at Purdue is your first game, 7:10 on Thursday, followed by 7:30 on TBS. Iowa will play Nebraska. And that's actually going to be the third time we're going to face one another. I mentioned Iowa beat Nebraska earlier. So it's not as if I was going to be going in there shaking their boots thinking that they don't have a shot. And I'm rooting for Nebraska. I want to see them get far. Who knows? Could they be the Indiana Hoosiers of football, considering that Indiana is a basketball school where we know Nebraska is a football school, and now you have a basketball team that's going far here in this tournament. Then you have Arkansas, Arizona at 9:45. That's CBS. And then Illinois, Houston will round out the opening night there at 10:05 on CBS and True TV, where the Iowa, Nebraska is also the same. Then on Friday, the first game is St. John's Duke, 7:10 primetime, followed by Alabama, Michigan. Those games in order, CBS and then TBS, True TV. Then you have Michigan State, UConn at 9:45, followed by Tennessee, Iowa State. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. 8 games to advance to the Elite Eight. And then obviously we will preview it there on Thursday and then recap it a week from today, which will lead us to a Final Four weekend the following weekend after that. And there's your college basketball. I see the comments there, people. Don't worry. I will get to that. I will promise as we move it along. And let me stick with the basketball as I'll get to the NBA. I have my high tops laced up to the top. The NBA, let me pull up the NBA page here too. The big story coming out of the association are the Lakers. They've won 10 in a row. They're actually going to play the Pistons tonight, and that should have been your NBC game. I know Peacock or whatever, they're going to show San Antonio, Miami. All right, not a bad game, but Lakers-Pistons, could that quite possibly be a Final Four, or I should say an NBA final? I still got college basketball in the brain. My apologies there. Is it quite possible that we could see that? Similar to what we saw in 87, 88, and 2004? All right. A little bit premature to even say that. But listen, we could all think about how the Lakers have been on this roll here. And Luka, who avoided a suspension because his 16th technical foul was rescinded, so he'll be in the lineup tonight. And the Lakers, what could you say? They've been on a bit of an East Coast now, an Eastern trip, because they had played in Orlando where Luke Kennard had that 3 there on Saturday night to propel the Lakers to their 10th straight victory. 2 nights prior to that, they were in Miami, where the Lakers prevailed there, and they've won 10 in a row. And the question is, are they peaking too soon? There's still about 10 games left in the season. You could actually even arguably say that they may have peaked too soon because they still have this final, 2 weeks of the season, because the season will conclude 2 weeks from yesterday. But even more so, you could ask whether they peaked too soon. Maybe. But the bigger question is this a team to be reckoned with out west? Now, we know there's been a lot of talk about when LeBron is out of the lineup, when you have Austin Reeves and Luka together, they actually played well. And when all three of them on the court, they have played well. But they are a defensive liability when you have those three guys on the court. So now it begs the question, will they have a good enough run here in the Western Conference to maybe get to a conference final, or dare I even say an NBA final? I understand maybe a little bit too early to tell, but considering that right now they're entrenched in that 3 spot, and let me pull up those standings here as I talk to you about that. I meant to do that a moment ago. Here's the thing that you have to worry about if you're a Laker fan. Now, if they're going to be entrenched in the 3, as right now, you can't exhale to think that. They do have a 2-game lead over the Rockets right now. 3 in the loss on Denver and Minnesota, who in the standings are 2.5 back. And I get it that they have what? Let me do my math here quick. They are 46 and 25. Oh, and I said they won 9 in a row. I thought they won 10 in a row. So that's my bad. My apologies for saying that. I thought they had won 10 in a row. And the crazy thing is, you would think with this 9-game winning streak, all right, how close did they get to the Spurs and the Thunder? Not at all, because the Thunder have won 11 in a row and the Spurs have won 5 in a row. But they're going to be minimum of 3. Now, with the peaking too soon, let's see what's going to happen here throughout the rest of the schedule. But I think the Lakers are going to be in good shape. And listen, if they go up against San Antonio, if the standings stay where they're at, I think that'd be a very fascinating series. To think you have that young up-and-coming team going up against the veteran Laker team. I understand you got a couple of young guys there with AR, 15, and Luka. But LeBron, obviously, could you even say he's in the twilight of his career at 41 years of age, still being a productive player? Unbelievable. But could the Lakers win that series? Now, I understand we got to get to that point. Right now, I could try to be that prognosticator. I could see that being a long series, maybe 6, but I would think the Spurs would outlast the Lakers because of their size, their youth. I understand they don't have the experience, and that between what the Lakers could provide there as far as the experience compared to the youth, length, and just ability of a Spurs team. But I think right now, I'd have to say that I don't think the Lakers, they could get to a conference final, but I don't think they will. But right now they're showing that they're going to be a tough team as they're peaking. Maybe a little bit too soon because there's still 11 games left, but certainly have probably played their best basketball now all season, which is good because you want to have that as you get deeper into this month and obviously into April and, of course, once you get to the playoffs. But that, to me, is the big story. We could talk about the Thunder. Oh, they've won 11 in a row, whatever. But listen, the Thunder are going to be judged on what happens in April, May, and June. And this is, of course, based on what they did last year. Winning a title, defending champ. And, yeah, we could say, oh, they are the hottest team in the sport. They've won consecutively more than the Lakers. But the reason why I bring up the Lakers is because can they be that other team to throw a wrench into the system? Considering that the front runners all year in the West have been OKC and San Antonio, it's a good argument. I'd have to say right now, no, but listen, it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Lakers will be in a conference final against OKC. But as I gave you my answers earlier, you know how I feel about that. Now, who knows? A 3-game losing streak and a Rocket 3-game winning streak, then the Rockets have the 3 seed. And the same can be said for Denver and the Timberwolves as well. Because we talked about that 3 to 6 cluster. It's pretty much wide open for anybody to get that 3 seed. And you want to get the 3 seed because you would avoid having to play OKC in the second round to where if you're the 4-5, yeah, good luck with that. And even if you're a 6, even better. And as it is in the Western Conference, with the way the Suns have now started to set here a little bit, looks like they're going to be entrenched in the play-in because they're 4 games behind the troika of Houston, Denver, and Minnesota for that 4 to 6 spot. So looks like Phoenix is going to host a playing game when it's all said and done. And even the Clippers have leapfrogged over the Trailblazers to where they're in the 7-8 game. And you want to have that 7-8 game because if you lose, it gives you that fallback to play the winner of the 9-10 game. And we know that the Warriors have been struggling. Warriors right now, they're in the midst of a trip where they lost in Boston. They lost in Atlanta, where Jonathan Kuminga actually had a chance to go at his old team for the first time since the trade. And all he did was shoot 1 for 9 for 2 points. So I'm sure Steve Kerr looked at that. It's like, well, hey, this is why we had a falling out of sorts between player and coach, maybe even front office and player. And Kuminga, you would think, salivating. I understand it was his first game coming back from an injury, but you would have thought he'd done or would have done a lot better than scoring 2 points on shooting 1 for 9 from the field. So that's what you have out west. And then in the East, we know the Pistons are going to have the 1 seed. Celtics lose to the Timberwolves last night. Not a good game by the C's at home. Went ice cold in the fourth quarter. They missed a bunch of shots consecutively. And the T-Wolves put it on the Celtics, where the Knicks right now are a game and a loss, but a half game back for that 2 seed. And I got news for you. If it is going to be Knicks Celtics in the second round, I'm going to be here for it. And hopefully they could exact revenge from what happened there last year. But again, that's for down the road. That's for the early part of May. But I'm looking at that 2-3, and that's going to be just a rock fight. And the Celtics play the Knicks that final week of the season, I think that Thursday, which is the 9th. And that's a prime video game. So you know I'm going to be all over that game as we build up and lead into that. Cavs, they look like they're going to be the 4, although they're 2 back of the Knicks right now for that 3 seed. And then the rest of the conference, I mean, listen, it's a mishmash. With Toronto, Atlanta, Philly, Orlando. I mean, think about this. From 5 to 10, which also includes Charlotte for that 10 seed, they're all separated by 2.5 games. 3 and a loss. So I could close my eyes, wake up a week from now, and that could be flipped on its ear to where Orlando was as high as a 5. Remember, Orlando, Miami, I believe this time last week had the 5-6 slot. Now they're 8-9. And I bet you next week they'll be back in the 5-6 where Toronto, Atlanta, they'll slide down. And remember, Atlanta, they had that long winning streak where they were unconscious and they were hovering in that 9, 10, 8, 9, and now they're a 6 seed. So the East is just unpredictable there from 5 down. Who knows how that's going to shake down? I couldn't even tell you from one day to the next, similar to what we've seen there with the 3-6 in the East. Oh, excuse me, out West. But you have some intrigue here. So let's see as we move it along, and I'll take a look at the schedule here. Let me see if there's anything else of the NBA to discuss. NBA. Oh, I know you had that crazy brawl between OKC and Washington. 4 players ejected. I don't think they handed out suspensions yet, but we'll see what's going to happen there. Kevin Durant passed MJ for 5th all time. Only LeBron, Karl Malone, Kareem, and Kobe are on that list. So congratulations to KD. And then, of course, LeBron passed Robert Parrish for most games played in NBA history. Regular season, that is. I'm sure combined, he's probably got the most anyway. So congratulations to him on that. And then real quick, the WNBA got a new CBA. Good for them, because if they didn't get a new CBA, that would have been a disaster for them, considering that their popularity is at an all-time high. And if they would have had to strike or lose games, that would have been a disaster. So you don't have to worry about that. But as far as the schedule for the week, tonight you have, like I mentioned, Lakers in Detroit. Your Peacock games are Spurs at Heat, Golden State at Dallas. Other games of note. Oklahoma City at Philadelphia tonight. That's a good game. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, you have teams that are playing against, teams that have playoff implications, like Indiana or Orlando and Memphis at Atlanta. But listen, nothing sexy about those games at all. Tomorrow, your NBC games are Orlando at Cleveland and Denver at Phoenix. Pelicans at the Knicks, Sacramento at Charlotte, nothing to write home there. And then your ESPN double dip, Atlanta, Detroit, followed by Houston at Minnesota. And in between, you have Oklahoma City at Boston, Lakers at Indiana, Dallas at Denver. Yeah, I mean, you got slim pickings here. Toronto at the Clippers. Yeah, Wednesday night is a rough night. So that's what you got with the association. As we move it along, let me lace up the skates and take a trip around the ice real quick to see what's happening in the National Hockey League. And really, the big story that's happening there is the wild card races. Now, I understand you have divisional races too, which they're fast and furious, hotly contested. But what I'm seeing with the wild card, especially in the East, do you know that you have 8 teams wrapped up for just 4 spots? That right there alone is going to make for great theater down the stretch. And I get it. You got to be a hockey fan, dying the wool, or a good sports fan to really be on top of this. But look at these standings. And last night, the Islanders won a big game against Columbus. Columbus was ahead of them in the standings. Now they're actually tied. And interestingly enough, when we look at the standings there in the NHL, with the Islanders winning that game at home where Ilya Sorokin got his 7th shutout, which will lead the league, the Islanders have overtaken the Red Wings to get that last playoff wildcard spot, but they have the same amount of points as the Blue Jackets. But considering that the Blue Jackets have a tiebreaker right now and a game in hand on the Islanders, they have the 3rd spot in the division, which means if the season ended today, Columbus would be at Pittsburgh, where the Islanders, they would play the dreaded Carolina Panthers. And we've seen that matchup before, and I do not want to see that again. And in fact, the Islanders play the Hurricanes twice here over the last, 3 weeks left in the season. The season ends, if I do my math correctly, 3 weeks? This week is the 27th. 3rd. It ends 3 weeks from Thursday, this coming Thursday. So, and they play them twice here down the stretch. So hopefully that's not going to be a playoff preview. Oh, I've seen enough Hurricane Islander first-round matchups for 100 lifetimes. But with the Islanders now having that spot, but here's the thing. Pittsburgh is 1 point ahead of both Columbus and the Islanders for home ice in the opening round. And how that's going to play out is going to be crazy. And this all ties into the 8 teams for 4 spots. Here are your 8 teams. You have the Canadiens, because the Bruins are a point behind them to see if they could get the 3 seed where they would go to Tampa in an opening round, and then Montreal will fall back to get the wild card. So that's 2 spots there. You have the 3 spots in the Metropolitan, as I said, 4 teams separated by 1 spot. So that's 6 right there, if you include Montreal, Boston, Carolina, Pittsburgh, Columbus. That's 5 teams, I should say. And then the other 3 teams, you have Detroit, 1 point behind the Islanders for the final playoff spot, and 2 points behind, a point behind Boston and 2 points behind Montreal just to get to a 3 seed. And then you have Ottawa, who is 4 points behind the Islanders. And I'll throw in the Flyers, 80 points, 5 points back. So you have all those teams that are going to fight it out for 4 playoff spots. Those 4 playoff spots would be the 3 seed in each the Atlantic and Metropolitan, really 6 spots, and the 2 wildcard spots. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, because Tampa, yeah. So you have, let me just do that one more time. Do my math. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is 6 playoff spots. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 8 teams for 5 spots. I said 8 for 4. It's 8 for 5. Math is usually my strong point, but maybe not right now it is. But that's where we're at with the East, and that's going to be crazy. And as far as the divisions go, they're pretty much set in the East. Buffalo now, although they have a 4-point lead over Tampa, and let me see if they play them down the stretch. Remember they had that wild game a few Sunday nights ago where they were up 4-1 and then they were trailing 7-5 and then they're winning the game in overtime? Yes, Buffalo hosts Tampa April 6th. So that's a game we'll keep in mind, which is 2 weeks from today. So you got that cooking if you're in the East. And then you have Carolina, who has a sizable lead over the right now second place Penguins, 10 points. You don't have to worry about that. Out West, you have Colorado, 5-point lead over the Dallas Stars. They have a game in hand, so you think they're going to win a division outright. Minnesota as a 3 seed, 5 points behind Dallas for the 2nd seed there in the Central. Anaheim, 4-point lead over Vegas, 5-point lead over Edmonton in the Pacific. But then you have Utah and Nashville there at the 2 wildcard spots. And you don't have to worry about them trying to threaten anybody. And, well, maybe Utah. Let me see. No, Utah's in the Central. Are they not? I should know that off the top of my head because obviously Utah, they live from Arizona. Yes, Utah is in the Central like I thought, and Nashville. But with that, you have LA, 73 points, the Kraken, 71, and San Jose and Winnipeg, 70, who are 5 points behind Seattle 4, LA 3. So when you look at the wild card, and now you're just looking at the final wild card spot, where in the East you're talking about 2 seeds, 3 seeds, the top 2 wild card spots, etc. Here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams for 1 spot. And that's where the NHL, it's going to be crazy here down this final stretch of the season to see who's going to come out. And you know I'll be all over it as we get into April and we look at the schedules. That's going to be important. And, yeah, we talked about the Sabres. They are 1 point behind the Panthers for the 1 seed overall in the conference. And, I mean, think about the record that the Sabres have been on. I believe December 6th, the Sabres were 11-14-2, and 11-14-4, and since then they're 33-6-2. Just an incredible run. And then Edmonton, who I know they're trying to fight it out there to see if they could get that home ice against Vegas in the first round. They're not going to have Leon Draisaitl, who has a lower body injury for the rest of the remainder of the regular season. They say he'd be healthy for the postseason. And even the coach, Chuck Knobloch, I'm thinking of the baseball player, Chris Knobloch, said that it's not anything alarming, but it's something we've got to take precaution. Could he be back by the end of the regular season? He could, but we got to make sure that it's all systems go because they need him for the long haul, that being the Stanley Cup playoffs. So an injury to keep in mind to one of the top players in the sport, where Draisaitl has been out and will be out, at least we would think, until the end of the season, which concludes on April 16th. And then as far as your schedule goes, tonight the 1 game, Ottawa at the Rangers. Then tomorrow, your TNT, is that a doubleheader? TNT has Minnesota at Tampa. That's actually a pretty good game. A lot of games on the schedule tomorrow. Colorado at Pittsburgh, Columbus at Philadelphia, Blackhawks at Islanders, Seattle at Florida, Ottawa, Detroit, Carolina, Montreal, Toronto, Boston. Yeah, these are the games that know people. Vegas and Winnipeg, Edmonton, Utah. Wednesday, Boston at Buffalo, and the Rangers at Toronto, with the Boston-Buffalo game being on TNT. And that is your NHL in a big nutshell. Now, a couple of quickies before I sign off. I want to get to the baseball, just the over-under totals. Because on Wednesday, the live stream, 12 noon, right here on the channel, is going to be my 2026 MLB preview. Yeah, I may sprinkle in some other sports, but predominantly that is going to be wall-to-wall baseball. Break down the divisions, top storylines, which right now there aren't a lot. So keep that in mind. Put that in the back of your mental Rolodex as we get to Wednesday at noon. Surprises, disappointments, over-unders, my World Series pick, etc. But the over-under win totals, Vegas puts out the number of what they think that the team's going to make. You're either going to pick the over or under. Who do you think has the highest over-under in the sport? I mean, it's a no-brainer. The Dodgers. Their number is 102.5. Which team on the opposite end of the spectrum has the lowest number? Anyone want to take a stab? And I know I'll go back to this. Let me see. 12:01. So 12 o'clock hour. I got to remember that when I look at the comments. Or are you thinking maybe the Colorado Rockies? Is it the Rockies? It is not. Colorado currently where they stand is 54.5. Which, you know what? You'd be right. They do have the lowest total as far as over-under wins. But then I'm sure people are going to think, oh, well, the Marlins got to be up there, right? The Marlins usually a bad team. Well, the Marlins won 79 games last year, and their over-under win total for 2026 is 72.5. That's something to think about? Maybe. Teams that are on the low end. Obviously, the Rockies are at the bottom of the barrel. You have the Nationals at 65.5. You have the LA Angels of Anaheim at 70.5. Let's see. You have the Cardinals. When was the last time the Cardinals at 69.5? That may be a number to play. The Tigers, 85.5. So, yeah, I'm going to go on down the list here. It's not in alphabetical order. I don't know why they don't have that here. Figured they would. But here are your totals. Braves, 87.5. Orioles, 85.5. Kind of like that one. Mets, 90.5. Yeah, I'd probably take the under. They were 89 last year, and they have them 90.5 this year. Pirates, 78.5. White Sox, 67.5. Twins, 72.5. Rangers, 83.5. Texas, of course. San Francisco Giants, 89.5. Royals, 82.5. Mariners, 89.5. Reds, 80.5. After they won 89 last year. I know no Hunter Green, but still. Diamondbacks, 79.5. Rays, 77.5. The Sacramento Athletics, 75.5. Nats, we talked about. Red Sox, 87.5. Astros, 86.5. Angels, 70.5. We talked about. Tigers, 85.5. Yankees, 90.5. And not many teams that have, even in the 90s. We know there's only one team with 100, but yeah, think about that. We'll get to the 90s in a second. Cubs, 88.5. Padres, 83.5. Phillies, 89.5. Blue Jays, the defending AL champs. Think they're in the 90s? Paris the Thought, 88.5. Guardians, 79.5. Cardinals, 69.5. And then Brewers, 84.5. Baseball only has, I mean, think about this. 1, 2, 3 teams that are in. Now, I understand you have a bunch of 89.5s. Giants, Phillies. But you have, let me just double check that. You have 1, 2. I thought I saw a third team there. All right, so I'm looking. Yeah, I think there's only 2. I thought I saw a third team. I thought I saw 92. Make sure I get this right. 87, 85, 90. Maybe my eyes were deceiving me. But it sure looks like, as crazy as this sounds, you only have 2 teams that are in the 90s. that being the Mets and Yankees. And then your 89.5, like I mentioned, Phillies. Wow, that's incredible. Giants, Mariners. Yeah, why the Giants? I don't know. Goes to show you that there isn't other than the Dodgers, a dominant team that's coming out of spring training that people are going to look at and be like, ooh, yeah, I'm picking so-and-so at 92.5 or 91. So come Thursday, I will put, and I'm not betting, this is just friendly, people, but I'll probably more likely take 3 overs, 3 unders. Last year I was 4-2. I think I was 4-2. I think I may still have this year. 4-2 my over-unders for those who care. Yes, I was. Yeah, 4-2 you take. You'd rather be 5-1, 6-0. But that is your over-unders, and not much to talk about in baseball. I'll see if anything has come up here over the last X amount of minutes. But baseball. Oh, Spencer Strider to start on the IL. That's not good. Yeah, and Christopher Sanchez of the Phillies, he signed a 6-year deal. Let me see. Yeah, well, whatever. Yeah, I'm just looking at a couple of things here. Blue Jays extend manager John Schneider and the GM, and Luis Gil doesn't make Yankees rotation to start the season. I know he's had injuries after his Rookie of the Year 2 years ago. But that's what you have with the baseball. And now I'll wrap up by putting my helmet and shoulder pads on, and I'll get to your questions, comments, etc. I promise. NFL. Nothing really to talk about. I get it that, well, I take that back because you did have a big signing today before I get to what is not much to talk about, and that's had to do off the field. Jackson Smith-Njigba, the Seattle Seahawk first-team All-Pro wide receiver, newly minted Super Bowl champion, signed the highest-paid contract for a wide receiver. 4 years, $168.5 million with 120 and I believe a little bit over in guarantees. And listen, we all know how fantastic he is. Big year. Obviously winning a Super Bowl. There isn't much more you could say. Coming out of Ohio State, 4 years, 3 years in the league, has been just a terrific player. And you just have to tip your cap and congratulate him. Now you wonder, the Puka Nakuas of the world, who was a 5th-round pick out of that draft in 2023, and has comparable numbers to Njigba. Where do you think he's going to go? Where do you think he's going to end up? Now, I understand he probably has, 5-year contract, 2 years before he gets to that 5th year. Maybe they tear it up and they give him a new deal. Is it going to be anything close to what Nakua got? To what JSN got? Maybe. But we'll have to wait and see. But congratulations to JSN on landing the record-breaking contract. But the other thing I want to talk about, and this is small potatoes, but I don't know if he was trying to be cute, funny, or whatever it may be. But for Cam Skattebo, the Giant running back out of Arizona State, for him to come out to say that CTE or concussions in the NFL, it's like, no excuse, get back out there. And now asthma, and I'm paraphrasing. Maybe I should get up the exact quotes here. But yeah, definitely had his foot in his mouth. Should not have said that. Has apologized. He did put out a formal apology here in light of this just young, asinine quotes, comments, etc. And why am I getting that? I want NFL. But Skattebo did say he was sorry for being a tasteless joke. And he was on the Bring the Juice podcast. And he said, no, it's an excuse. And he did come out and say, I recently did an interview and had a lapse in judgment, which resulted in me making a tasteless joke about CTE and asthma. It was never my intention to downplay the seriousness of head injuries or asthma. I sincerely apologize to anyone that was offended by my remarks. And I assure you that I'll be more mindful and respectful moving forward. Much love. All right, well, you can only hope that he learned his lesson. So you give him a pass, a mulligan. Should not have done it. We know how CTE, how it's affected a lot of these players here over the last 15, 16 years or so. And even his situation regarding, what was that? If people, even his mom had gotten involved, saying that if you only knew how many times Cam had to run and get mom's inhaler because she had asthma, and pretty much saying that asthma is an excuse too. It's fake. It's this, it's that. I mean, yeah, not a good look for Skattebo. So let's hope he restores his image here a little bit, getting into the offseason, the maybe not mandatory workouts, but the voluntary workouts of OTAs, and we'll see what he has to say at that point down the road. And let me see if there's anything else that is happening. No, that will do it. Yeah, Skattebo. I only brought that up because there was nothing else to talk about. But meanwhile, it was a situation where, thankfully, JSN signed on the dotted line for Seattle, making him the highest paid wide receiver, the guaranteed money, etc. So that became an afterthought. But here it is. So Skattebo, hopefully, he's gotten that out of his system, the apology, etc. He can just move on and to bigger and brighter things. All right, let's get to the comments. There are a plenty. Oh, let's see. J-Rod, greetings. My guy Bio, Fishing Angel. That's right. And definitely longer because of the result there with UCLA, your beloved Bruins. But how was your time there, Bio? I'm sure it was great. Snowing in Michigan. Yeah, it was rainy, cloudy. It pretty much is that now. It's starting to clear up, but it was ugly. What I would do for 88, that'd be fantastic. Good for you there, Bio. Just lives in Vegas, thinking about moving to Texas. Oh, wow, look at that. Interesting. Kale salad, yeah. Spinning it up, watching the tournament. And no bark. Of course, Kisman has to chime in. I've been watching a lot of ladies tournament as well. Kisman. Not even close to women talk. Oh, wow. Is that right? Yeah, I have not watched 1 second of it. But we would think it's UConn's tournament to lose. So, watching NC State Michigan game yesterday. Oh, really? Wow. Yeah, I mean, you can't be running your mouth if you're down and getting blown out. That's definitely not good. So, I'm with you on that. Oh, no worries, Val. All good. Everybody's saying their hellos. I didn't even. Oh, is that right? Yeah, he retired a few years ago because of the NIL, everything that's gone on with that. Yeah, he said, the hell with this. I'm out of here. Yep, no longer the coach of the Cavaliers. Iowa, Texas coin flip for best. Yeah, no, excellent points there. Who has a better shot to go for, Iowa or Texas? Yeah, I would think probably Iowa, because Texas. Yeah, let me pull this up. Hold on 1 second. Texas, listen, they could beat Purdue. And they won't have to face a 1 seed in Arizona until the final. Whereas with Iowa, now they got Nebraska. They know them. Yeah, no, I'll stick with Texas's run. As I'm looking at Iowa now. Yeah, I would say no. I would say probably Texas. And even though Purdue's going to be tough, but Nebraska, those are going to be great games. I can't wait. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I know. Louisville was. Yeah, that was the Trey Burke. I remember that. Yeah, that was tough. I never forget. That was 2013. Oof, I think back at that time. I was going through a rough time in my life at that point. Yeah, Burke don't get called for that foul. Yep, and Warriors need to win today. But no, you're right about that, J-Rod. As I'm just like replaying that in my head. Yeah, that was oof. This is a big game for you, Val. Predators are ahead in the standings. You need to get that playoff spot, and you're going to play Nashville. That is a must. Yes, Yankees, Giants. A lot of Bay Area sports, as we know. Yes. Yep, totally agree. I can see Nakua getting past that. Or unless, imagine, let me see, if Nakua, just trying to think, would there be a way? Now, he'll definitely get the most money, but who else? Oh, excuse me. Stretching people. It's been a rough night or so. Who do I support, Sam? What sport? College basketball, if you're still with us. Football, let me know. Yeah, but no, Puka's I could see he's going to set that market. JSN making the most money as wide receiver. Yeah. Well, they feel like he's young enough, 24 years of age. But I'm with you, though. Yeah, I'm with you there, J-Rod. Yeah, it's interesting. Sam, I don't even watch basketball, but LeBron has fallen off. Or is he still one of the best? Yeah, no, he's not one of the best in the sports anymore. Hey, Juan. I hope you're still with us, man. Going back to Sam's comment. I don't really watch basketball. Listen, LeBron's 41. He doesn't play. He doesn't defend the way he once did. He picks and chooses his spots. Listen, LeBron is a good third option on your team. But because he's LeBron, what is going to happen come playoff time? But, listen, he's still effective, but he's definitely not the same player that he was not even 5 years ago, let alone his second go-around in Cleveland, or dare I even say Miami. Yes, Juan, let's go. Absolutely. I've signed number 4. Oh, all right, yes. Want them Wildcats. So I'm sure Utah is excited to have him in the mix at some point. Then we have, nope, still playing well. Let's see. I've been playing mine. Oh, really? I never played that game, so I wouldn't know. Val Beast is still one of the best in the league. I'm not too sure Sam don't watch much Lakers. He's a Warrior fan. What's this? 49ers need to figure out trends. Well, what they're going to do with that, Val, I don't know if you saw, they're going to pass on his option, but going to see if they're going to eye another deal. So, excuse me. So it's almost like a handshake agreement that they have with one another. So, yeah, I could see him coming back, but they're not going to give him a ton of money, though. Dylan Larkin needs to get. Oh, yes. Red Wings miss him. Yeah, that's for damn sure. What's this? He just started skating the other day. Yeah, that would suck. Yeah, big time. Yeah, UCLA, they are underdogs going into that game. Thank you, Val. Much appreciated. You know it. Happy Monday. Yes, Val. Wait a second. Toffoli, the Stormers only has wearing regular jerseys. But wait a minute. I didn't realize that. Yeah, I know Toffoli was out and Deschamais, but I didn't realize that Askarov. Wait a minute. Yeah, that is a huge game. They're going to play Nashville, and they're ahead of them in the standings. They need that, and especially if I don't want to say it could be their season, but it could be their season. Because I mentioned, what was it? 7 points? Hold on. All right, hang on. Why did the baseball come up? I don't know. Let me go back. Hold on. This thing is acting up. All right, let me get to that afterwards because, yeah, I have like a million tabs open. Let's see. I can't wait, sunny California. It's what? Oh, it's 9:20, so it's got to be sunny out by your neck of the woods now, isn't it, Val? I'll go outside later in perfect weather, walking around outside. Ah. Yeah, I know where that. Wait, hold on a second. No, I'm thinking of Inspiration Point. And no, not from Happy Days, but there's an Inspiration Point in Southern California, in Orange County, I believe. Thank you, Val. Oh, is that right? Dislocated his finger. Did he get into a fight? There it is. It's quite possible it could have been from a fight. I get paying younger players, but I do. No, but I bet. Yeah, still improving. Yeah. That's the thing. It is unproven. Now, what's tricky too is that, I mean, unless you have a stud quarterback or someone of that ilk, yeah, that's the danger of it. Because now, listen, I'm sure they're going to look at it as a job as opposed to them being at school. I'm trying to get an education, but yeah, Jay, I'm with you on that 100%. Yes, they are, Val. The over-unders I put up. Oh, is that right for football? Okay. And over-unders just came out. Oh, I'd like to see those. Wait, hold on. Okay, over-unders. Now this mouse is acting up. Over-unders for Big Ten. Over under 7.5. Illinois. Indiana 10.5. Yeah, Maryland. What do you think about 8.5 there, Jay? Michigan. Northwestern. Yeah, forget about that. Then it goes off a cliff. Oh, Oregon 10.5. Ohio State 9.5. Man. Wait a minute. Penn State 9.5. Wow. Yeah, and Purdue and Rutgers. Yes, forget about that. Well, there you go. That's where you have it. I'm curious to find out what you think about that number. I'll send you a link for the over as you want. No, I actually just looked through that. I'm sure you probably heard. Yeah, I still have them here. Yeah, I stopped before USC. All right. So that'll do it for that. Let me see what else you guys got. I think Michigan has 2 games they could lose at Oregon and Ohio State. Yeah, let's see what I think they already have. Hold on. Ohio State, Washington. Yeah, it doesn't get. Yeah, it's not giving me that right now. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I'm just. Yeah, that's it. All right. Yeah, that's it for the article. Val, you think we can beat the Mavericks, JAYREELZ? Warriors are not. Well, the Mavericks are terrible. I mean, if you can't beat them tonight, even with a depleted lineup, I mean, that's going to say a lot, but you guys are hurt too. So, yeah, I'll say for you, Val, I'll say yes. Excuse me. Yeah, I think I remember you saying that, Jay. So you would think even more the reason for them at 8.5 is the number. Yeah, I can see that. That's going to be an interesting Indiana, Michigan. Now, the thing is, you don't have Mendoza there, so it's not like they have the quarterback, but you would think they're going to be good, defending champ, but they're the hunted now. That's it. They had a great 2-year run. I mean, we'll see how effective they are, how good they are, but still. I'd have to agree. Let me see. What else do we have here? Yeah, non-committal, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Bill Self, non-committal. Yep. Got to share that. And the WNBA players have signed off on the CBA. So that's it. They're ready. What is it? Stephen A. I got St. John's going to the Final Four. Oh, yeah. It's easy for you to say that now. He's got the weakest takes on the planet. I can't stand it. Oh, terrible. Oh, let's see. Michigan don't play a second row game. Wow, the second until Halloween. And you said they got 8 on the schedule? Let me see. All right. Yeah, I'm over here just trying to read this thing. Wait, they already have the wins? Oh, no, this was last year? No. This wasn't last year. Oh, they have I see what they're doing here. Yeah, because I'm looking at this thing. There's this list. This is on CBS Sports. I'm sure you're probably watching that, or you probably followed that there as well. J-Rod. Yeah, but they're breaking down the wins and the losses, which I think is a little weird. I mean, I understand for fun you do that, but yeah. And from what I'm seeing, huge jump. Yeah, obviously they're going to need the quarterback play. I mean, you saw what happened in the game against Ohio State. I mean, he had a good year, but money on the line, you want him to deliver there. You don't want him to just implode, for lack of a better term. All right, people. Yeah, I think that's going to do it. If you have any other last-minute comments or if you want to join the flow, please do so. Let me see. All right. Let's get that out of there. Right. Okay. And now. Oh, 5. Hey, thank you, Val. As always, keeping score. Oh, and Trent Williams. Oh, hang on. Winner knows Underwood's legs are strength. Yeah, and the thing is, on top of all that, yeah, you know that these teams, and that's the thing too, in all those home games. Let me see. Did I pull that up, Jay? Hold on. Here are the wins that they have. And again, you can't take what they've put out here too seriously. Yeah, they have the wins: Western Michigan, UTEP, Iowa, at Minnesota, Penn State, at Rutgers, Michigan State, UCLA. Cover years bio. Losses: Oklahoma, Indiana, at Oregon State. All right. Let's go back. Oh, hang on. What you got here, Jay? And it should have been that way last year, but Moore was interested in something outside football. Yeah. All right. Should have been way more interested in football. Yeah. Yeah, it should have been more interested, but sometimes these players, they get wrapped up in things they shouldn't be getting wrapped up in, and then you already know. All right. Any other last minute comments, people? I will get ready to land this sucker as I am about to put another podcast in the books. You know what? I'll do my closing, and then I can come back with the comments and then wrap up there. That'll do it. Another episode just about the books, people. As always, thank you so much for stopping by, carving out precious time out of your day to listen to what it is I have to say about the toy department of life, a.k.a. sports. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel right here on YouTube at JAYREELZ. It will go a long way to increase the visibility of this channel with all the others that are out there. And please, if you could share with your family, friends, foes, frenemies, the good, great, diehard, casual sports fan in your life, one more time, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And if you also subscribe to Apple's podcast or Spotify podcasts, also on Spotify, you could watch the replay or the post that I'll have of the podcast. And again, throw me a few stars, write a review. I greatly appreciate that. If you want to hit me up with any questions, comments, or suggestions, you could do so at the following: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the JAYREELZ Podcast, or just JAYREELZ on Instagram. Twitter, JAYREELZ1, just a number. Twitch, JAYREELZ1, just a number. Or the old-fashioned way, the JAYREELZ Podcast at gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to follow up with you guys and gals, because whether you do or do not know, this is what I love to do, people. In the blood and the DNA, talking sports is birth. Doing what it is that I love. Trying to carve a path, blaze a trail in this podcast space universe to bring not only credible, informative, entertaining, engaging, knowledgeable sports talk, none of that clickbait, rage bait garbage that you see elsewhere, which you don't want that. You want true, real, passionate sports talk day in, day out, right here on the channel from yours truly, because as long as I'm alive and breathing, I promise I will deliver nothing. As long as I'm in front of this camera and microphone, passion, fire, energy, fury, my thoughts, opinions, critiques, praise, analysis, feelings on anything and everything that happens on the world of the diamond, ice, gridiron, hardwood, golf course, racetrack, tennis court, boxing ring, octagon, you name it. My lips to your ears, from my heart to your soul, for I am to wherever you are. The JAYREELZ Podcast always comes live, correct, direct, and in full effect. From the South Bronx, the South Beach, the South Central, the South Pacific, and all points beyond, peace, love, and God bless everybody. Until next time on the JAYREELZ Podcast, on the flip, baby. All right, now to, yes, J-Rod, have a great day. Reeves got in a fight. Yeah, I know. He's been in the league a long time. One of the last great tough guys there, Val. 6 likes. Keeping you up with the like count. I appreciate that, Val. I appreciate you. I appreciate all that's tuned in, chimed in. I need my glasses here because I every time I get on, when I'm looking down and I'm like trying to read this and make this out, it's a mess. Despite the fact me being exhausted and tired, etc. But again, goes without saying how much I appreciate you all, how much I am just privileged and honored to put forth this podcast, the shorts, everything on this channel for you guys and gals to be a part of this community. I tell you, I do not take it for granted. And one more time, as I've said a million times over, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And until next time, everybody, enjoy the rest of your Monday. I'll be back tomorrow. Chances are I may be doing the live stream from the event that I'll be at, which will be between 6 and 8 p.m. If something happens sooner, maybe I'll do a double dip tomorrow. Who knows? So keep it locked on the channel. I appreciate you guys. And until then, on the flip, baby.